Hi friends, today I am going to be doing my reading roundup for February of 2023. Let's jump in. Going in order of the books that I read this month, I started this book in January. If you watched what I was reading in January or what I read in January, you will know that I had started The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. I'm happy to say that I finished it. It was a really fun, enjoyable book. This book is essentially a retelling of 1001 Nights. If you're interested in any Middle Eastern lore, mythology, the jinn, the ifrit, this is a really fun story that'll kind of deep dive headfirst into a lot of that, but with a really fun spin and retelling. Some of the stories that we're introduced to are The Lamp, we have the tale of Shahrazad, but they are all under the guise of different names. We have these really fun characters, Luli al-Nazari, who is called the Midnight Merchant. We have an assassin of the 40 Thieves, who's named Aisha. We have Prince Mazin, who is called the Cowardly Prince. The author herself refers to him as a coward. I personally don't think he's all that cowardly. I think he's maybe just a little naive, but it is a really fun story, and it is the first book in what is going to be called the Sansi trilogy. This is Chelsea Abdullah's debut novel, and I think it was a really stellar start. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I love most things that deal with mythology. I studied classical history, and I just love digging into any kind of world building that has mythos or lore behind it, and this one definitely did, so highly recommend. It was super enjoyable. The second book I read in February was Elantris, which is by Brandon Sanderson. It was his first published novel, but his sixth book that he had written. A lot of people across the board of Sanderson fans feel that this is his worst work. I have to disagree. I mean, I haven't read everything of Sanderson yet, so it might be that I end up feeling that way at the end, but I loved this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I really was endeared to several of the characters. I liked that the POVs in this book were from 3 characters. There was a prince, a princess, and a priest. The priest, Rathan, or Rathan, as I discussed in my previous video. I don't listen to audiobooks, so I'm not entirely sure how a lot of the characters in Sanderson's books are said. They can be pronounced a myriad of ways, but that's besides the point. He is one of the most compelling characters that I have encountered in the books that I've read of Sanderson so far, which thus far have been a few. I'm going to get to a couple others in just a minute. Elantris takes place in the city of Elantris. It was that you used to be blessed if you woke up one day and you had become an Elantrian. They were godlike figures that walked among men. They became quite tall, quite muscular. They had white hair and silvery skin, and then all of a sudden one day there was an earthquake, and the people that lived in Elantris became plagued with something called the Sheod. It ended up sort of looking like a descriptor of the Black Plague, and the thing that was the most unfortunate is that these people aren't necessarily dead, so while they are alive, their bodies still work, but they don't work in the same way. So if you injure yourself, you're not going to heal because you don't have a heartbeat. Your body isn't technically alive, but it also technically isn't dead. It was a really fun story. I really enjoyed it. A lot of the characters, the side characters, I thought were very good. And again, the priest, he was such a great character. I gave this book a 5 out of 5. I had a lot of pretty good ratings this month, all in all, but I really enjoyed Elantris, and I then jumped into my next read. My next read was If Only They Could Talk by Alf White, aka James Herriot. It is also known as All Creatures Great and Small. If Only They Could Talk, or All Creatures Great and Small, was the debut novel of veterinarian Alf White, who took the pen name James Herriot. He was a veterinarian in the Yorkshire Dales in the 1930s. He details his life of being a farm vet as well as having a practice in the town that he calls Derby, even though this actually took place in Thirsk in England. He has a fun set of characters that are in his book, specifically his boss, who is Siegfried Farnan, and Siegfried's brother, who is Tristan Farnan. You've seen the show adapted, I don't know who actually adapted it in the UK, but I watch it on Masterpiece Theatre on PBS. They have done a really beautiful job with adapting the book. I actually prefer the adaptation. This is not to say that his writing style is bad. I just feel like it personally isn't for me. This was my lowest ranked book of the month. I gave it a 3 out of 5 or 3.5 out of 5. I think it was a 3 out of 5. All in all, I didn't love a lot of the veterinary stories. I really enjoyed the stories where he was talking about Siegfried and Tristan and found those quite endearing and very funny. But all in all, the show captivates you because you are interested in the farmers and the animals and the life that he's building in the Yorkshire Dales. And a lot of that magic and spark, I think, was actually missing in the book. So I give props to the adapters of the television show. I think they did a better job, but they wouldn't have had anything to adapt had he not written it. So there's that. The next thing I read, which is now officially my favorite published work by Brandon Sanderson, is Warbreaker. I love Warbreaker, guys, and so far I have read Mistborn Era 1, I have read Warbreaker, Elantris, and Secret History, which is my next one, so we're having a little bit of a spoiler on that. And I've got to say, Warbreaker is my favorite. I loved this book from start to finish. The intro, I thought, of the Sanderson books that I've read so far was the most engaging right off the bat. I was so interested to know who this crazy guy was that was going around. It was just so well done. The magic system in Warbreaker, I think, is the best and most interesting one that I have read so far. This is not to say that the magic system of Mistborn and that in Elantris are disinteresting, because they're definitely not. They have their own complexities to them, especially Mistborn, but I don't think that there is any as complicated and layered as the one in Warbreaker. Things are powered by color. It was just a really beautifully written book. I found out afterwards that Sanderson actually wrote this book while on his honeymoon, which I thought made sense, because I think Warbreaker probably has the best love story that I've read out of all of them so far. It seems that Sanderson kind of has love stories in all of his books, but some of them are more superficial than others, and I found that the one that took place in Warbreaker actually had some depth to it and was really interesting. It also had probably one of my favorite side characters. He's not even really a side character. He's a POV character, so he's up there. But Lightsong, the Bold, I loved Lightsong. I thought he was so comical. I actually laughed out loud while reading this book. All the while, I had moments that I found to be incredibly touching and sad. Sanderson does a beautiful job at showing how someone who is so into their morals and standing can turn on those morals and beliefs if the situation has called for it and if they've been down on their luck. And I thought that that was a really interesting character development for a story that doesn't necessarily see that type of thing all the time. I really enjoyed this book. 5 out of 5. I will definitely go back and reread Warbreaker probably several times, and I feel like I will pick up things along the way that I will like more and more each time. I recommend, if you are looking to jump into the Cosmere, I would say probably don't start with Warbreaker, but if you are someone that is interested in fantasy but you're not really sure, but you don't really have much interest in the Cosmere as a whole, then Warbreaker would probably be a wonderful place for you to start. Honestly, I just love this book. I could not say enough good things about it. To get back to my spoiler, the last book I read this month was The Secret History of Mistborn, aka Mistborn Secret History. This was a really fun read. I enjoyed reading Mistborn Era 1 immensely, and this gives us an alternate perspective on events that take place in primarily the last 2 books. So book 2 and book 3 of Mistborn Era 1. There are a few snippets that are from book 1, but it's really well done, and it's one of these things that you can go in and see if you've read, obviously I hope you read Mistborn Era 1 before you read Mistborn Secret Histories, but you can see all these things behind the scenes and go, oh, that's what that was. And it's brilliant on Sanderson's part. I really enjoyed this story. I give it a 4 out of 5. All in all, I had a great reading month, and this was a fun way to cap it off. This wasn't the last thing I started reading in February. I then jumped into Way of Kings, so that is on my TBR for March. I'm hoping that I will be able to get through it fairly quickly. I'm finding, compared to a lot of Sanderson's other work, that it is much more of a slog and a slow burn for me. So I'm hoping that that will pick up as the book carries on. We'll see, and I will report back next month with what my feelings are about Way of Kings. If you'd like to help support me or tell me what you read this month, you can leave a comment in the comments below. You can also hit like and subscribe. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Fantasy Awash. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.